Justice Minister Mmamoloko Kubayi says while she remains unhappy with the overall performance of the NPA, there's no solid evidence to question the competence of its head, Advocate Shamila Batohi. The comments were made at International Association of Women Judges Conference, which enters day 2 in Cape Town today. The gatherings focusing on diversity, equality and the fight against gender-based violence. For more on this now, we cross live to our SABC News reporter Canny Maphanga in Cape Town.
Indeed. Well, good afternoon to you, Juliet, and to the viewers at home. We've just gotten into day 2 of the International Association of Women Judges Conference, which looks at ending the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide. We know that these judicial officers, legal professionals, policymakers play critical roles in transforming the societies in which they serve in. This morning, we did see a discussion on diversity and inclusion with specific reference to the marginalized community that is the LGBTQIA+ community. We've seen discussions regarding laws that have been brought in place to transform the way the criminal justice system or the justice system as a whole responds and protects marginalized communities. We've also heard presentations from the Botswana chapter where there are still challenges despite the progressions that they have made with their highest court making orders that protect the lives of marginalized communities. And then, of course, we've seen some of these judicial officers and the discussions regarding creating a safe working environment and, of course, sexual harassment in the workplace take turns describing how vulnerable women judges or women legal professionals or women court staff are left in some of these courts as there aren't any measures to protect these individuals. But to continue this discussion, I am joined by one of the delegates that has been taking part in this particular discussion this morning. That is Abigail Ngobene, who is an attorney here in South Africa and is serving as a delegate at this conference where nations across the globe are represented. I think where we can start is the troubling case of Botswana. We know that there are gains in how the law responds to same-sex relations, but we do know, despite the amendments, that the penal code still exists, which means there's a lot of work because marginalized communities still fall under gender-based violence and femicide, and of course Botswana still has some of those gaps in dealing with that particular challenge.
Thank you very much for having me. And of note, you would remember, of course, that we had, besides the Botswana, we also had the challenges from other regions and other continents that were presented today. But to respond to your question on the Botswana issue, it seemed to have had a groundbreaking judgment which happened in 2019, which sought to declare some parts of the penal code that you are referring to unconstitutional, in that the plaintiff there and other parties who joined as the amici had their rights confirmed to say that everyone should, of course, be protected by the law and have their rights to privacy, freedom, and, of course, to dignity. When you refer specifically to the LGBTQI community, to say such rights should be protected. And of course, as you have said, they still lament to say a lot of reform in their legislation still need to take place. And of course, one would be very interested to see the development of Botswana as a case study.
With the constitution in place, one wonders how the penal code still exists in Botswana today.
It is very interesting and of course at the same time very worrisome. You'll remember that in South Africa we have done so much development. We have worked so hard from the past laws that seem to be very discriminatory. Now you know that in terms of the constitution, every South African is protected and cannot be unfairly discriminated based on gender and all the sexual orientation and all other factors that are contained in Section 9 of the Constitution. So I think the South Africa is modeling very well in the continent in terms of inclusive approach as well as accommodating gender diversity.
And lastly, very quickly, we know that in South Africa, despite criticisms, the judiciary is held in quite a high regard, where we don't see instances of judges being attacked in open courts, but we've seen chapters from Kenya and Botswana explaining how they were physically assaulted in courts, and they don't have the kind of measures that we've seen in South Africa, such as metal detectors, etc., to protect judicial officers. Is that not a concern for delegates that you have judges judges working under such, dare I say, harsh conditions in delivering the services or dispensing justice in their various nations?
It is very interesting, and it is very worrisome of the things that the working conditions that we have heard that some of the judges are working on. But I want to commend the International Association of Women Judges for cases where they have intervened. You would remember that there are judges from Afghanistan, if I'm not mistaken, who were somehow removed from dangerous spaces, environment of where they were working on, and then placed in other continents and other regions to be able to be safe and work. And one of the speakers in the conference said judges are human beings, and they also faces pressures that every other citizen faces. And we just stepped out of a presentation that also spoke to the well-being mentally and emotionally of a judge. And those are some of the things that the IAWJ has taken into consideration. It seemed to be a development. They seem to have brought it in a table for discussion, and we hope that from this conference so much recommendations and declarations will be made to effect changes in other continents.
Thank you very much. That is Abigail Ngobene, delegate here at the International Association of Women Judges. Of course, Juliet, the conversation continues. Deliberations will continue until Saturday as these various judges and legal professionals gather together as a global force to come up with some resolutions and recommendations on how they will contribute towards ending the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide. Over to you in studio.
Thanks very much. That was our reporter Canny Maphanga giving us an update on the International Association of Women Judges, reporting live from Cape Town.